Hey everybody, this is Heidi, and you're listening to the Successful Fashion Designer Podcast. We all know that the fashion industry is brutally competitive and it takes loads of hard work to get ahead. The problem is that everyone's secretive and tight-lipped about their ways. After working as a designer and educator for over a decade, I wanted to help break down those barriers and bring you valuable knowledge from industry experts, and this show is exactly where you'll find that. Whether you're trying to break into the fashion world, make yourself more marketable, launch your own label, or become a successful freelancer, we'll help you get ahead in the cutthroat fashion industry. This is episode 64 of the Successful Fashion Designer Podcast, and today I'm chatting with Anouchka Santella. Anouchka has a brand of clothes called Wear Gold, and you guys are going to love her story. So for everyone out there listening who feels like, I don't have any experience in fashion, I come from a different industry, I have no idea what I'm doing, I have no idea where to even start, Anouchka's story is exactly like yours. She had all these great ideas, she started kind of sketching them, she never really thought about having a fashion brand and thought this is not really something that people do, it's like being a Hollywood actress, which is so interesting because it's exactly how I always felt about getting into the industry years ago. Bottom line, she decided to just kind of go for it. She started seeing people around her doing entrepreneurial things and making it happen. And she thought, you know what? I'm going to do this. Her story and journey is so amazing and so inspiring. And she tells us exactly how in just 6 short months, she went literally from zero to launch. She started out with nothing, and in 6 months, she had her first collection out the door and was starting to sell. She walks us through exactly step-by-step what she did to get there, how she got people to her website to actually purchase, how she got through production, not without a few painful moments, a few, failures and rough patches along the way, which is what happens in life, what happens in an entrepreneurial journey, but she's really transparent. I was really excited to have Anouchka on the show today as well, because she is a longtime listener and fan. Before we started recording, she started telling me, and we talk about it a little bit at the end of the episode as well, that she's listened to every single podcast episode I've ever put out, which is so amazing to hear. And she reached out to me on Instagram just to say hi and to chat and see how things were going and let me know how much she loved the show. And after a little bit of dialogue and conversation, I invited her to be a guest, and she was over the moon thrilled. And she said, I never really thought about being a guest. I'm just here as a listener. But she has so much to share and such a great journey. So I know you guys are really going to love listening to everything she has to say. Now, I will always remind you the best way you guys can help grow the show, grow the audience, help me get bigger, better, awesomer guests on here, and help share all this knowledge with other people out there that are trying to make it in this industry is to let someone know about the show. So if you have a friend, a coworker, a boss, whoever it may be, and you think that they would like to listen to the show, that they would gain some insights and some tips, go ahead and give them some value and share the show with them. Let them know that you're thinking about them and you have this great resource that you think they would enjoy. Do that right now. Send a text or an email to someone who you think would appreciate listening to the Successful Fashion Designer Podcast. I'm sure they will thank you, and I thank you very, very, very much. I appreciate each and every one of you. Now, let's jump into the interview with Anouchka. To access the show notes for today's episode, visit sfdnetwork.com/64. Welcome, Anouchka, to the Successful Fashion Designer Podcast. I would love to have you introduce yourself to everybody and let us know who you are and what you do in the fashion industry.
Okay, well, thank you for having me. So I'm from Paris. I was born there and I grew up there. And a few years ago, I moved to England. So this is where the brand is based. So I've got a clothing brand. I was always drawing clothes ever since I was a kid, but I never ever thought of it as a career. Like, I think I kind of always thought of fashion designer as the same kind of job as, like, I want to be a singer or an actor or whatever. It's like kind of fantasy world job that no one actually ever does apart from like a lucky few kind of thing. So it never really occurred to me that I could do this. And one day, I never studied fashion, I didn't study business, not anything like that. So I really didn't ever consider it. I studied journalism, so nothing to do with that. But one day I was really unhappy at my job. I was just working in a bar job and I just didn't really know what I was doing. I knew I wanted to do something a bit more creative kind of thing, but I didn't know exactly what. And I was just constantly making a list of clothes that I wish existed that I couldn't find, or drawing clothes myself. And it just hit me that I could actually potentially do that. And I think that's because when I moved to England, I've met a lot of people who had their own brands or at least like vintage brands, or like they just, I don't know if it's because I was a bit older than when I was in Paris, or if it's an English thing. I know starting a business in England is easier than in France, so that might be why. But in France, none of my friends were like sort of entrepreneurs kind of type of people. Whereas in here, I feel like a lot of people were. So I think it kind of made me feel like, oh, I could actually potentially do that. That's not like a crazy thing that never is going to happen kind of thing. So I just, I took a few business classes. I took a short course with Central St. Martin's, the fashion school of London. And I just started to look at where and how to get the clothes made. All I knew was that I wanted everything to be made in England. That was my only thing that really mattered to me. And then I launched the brand.
Wow. Okay. So, like, give us a rough timeline of all this happening. So
that's literally a year ago. Like, I quit my job and started to take the classes in mid-June last year.
Oh.
So that went really fast. And I launched in December.
Wow.
Yes, that was
quick.
really quick. Yeah.
Okay, so like walk us through that a little bit more. So you always paralleled working in fashion or being a fashion designer to like, I mean, I always paralleled it the same thing. It's like being a famous actress. It's like, nah, normal people like me don't really do that.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And then you saw some people around you when you moved to England doing that, and you thought, wait, maybe I can do that. And then that's an insanely quick timeline.
I know, yeah. I think it's just, the kind of thing where I was like, oh, I think I really want to do that. And I've kind of given it a bit of a thought, but mainly I just did the fashion design class with Central St. Martin's. And I was still working at that point. Like I still had my job. And I thought that gave me, because it was 2 months, I thought that gave me enough time to think whether I really want to do this or not. I think doing this for 2 months, I'll know whether that's something that I'm really passionate about enough to make a job out of it, career out of it, or whether it's just like my latest, I want to do this week, and that's just going to go away. And by the end of it, I was like, yeah, this is definitely what I want to do. And also, I think I've always wanted to have my own business, whether I didn't necessarily know what, but I've always wanted to either work freelance or like not having a boss and being in charge and being able to do what I wanted, the way I wanted to do it, was always something that really appealed to me. So I think that kind of made sense to me.
And what has your work experience been before this, not in fashion?
Not in fashion at all. So I studied journalism, and I absolutely love writing. I want to write books. I want to do all of those kind of stuff, but that's more on the side. And right now I need to focus on the fashion thing, really. Yeah. But that's still something that I'm really, really into. But I did a few internships in magazines, but they're nothing to do with fashion. And the closest thing I've ever done to do with fashion was modeling for a couple of brands of people I knew. That was literally it, and buying way too many clothes. So that's a very, very, not a very small experience.
Consuming a lot of fashion.
Yeah. But to be fair, that did kind of help me get here in the sense that I know what I don't want to do. And I think that's why I really wanted to make everything in England, because I used to consume fashion like a crazy person, going to Topshop and spending £190 in one go every couple of weeks or something. It was really insane. And I think I just realized that's not actually what I want to do anymore. That's not the way I want to see fashion, because it's so destructive to so many things, human lives and environment and all sorts. And I was I want something that I can be proud of, and I'm not thinking people are in danger when they're making the clothes, or this is actually really affecting Earth in a really bad way kind of thing. And I think if I hadn't gone to the extreme in the opposite direction, maybe I wouldn't have realized that kind of thing. Because I see the waste. I see how I've worn something twice and then never touched it again. And it's what's the point? I hate that.
Yeah.
Now.
And so having everything made in England, what's the biggest benefit for that? Is it just that you get to be close, and you get to visit the factory, you get to meet the workers? And I know you've sent me some details about how exactly you kind of went about your first round of production. So maybe we should start with that. What does this really look like? And I want to go a little bit more into detail, because I'm still sitting here jaw dropped with I took this class at Central St. Martin's. It was 2 months back last June, which is less than a year ago. And then in December, I launched. You went from 0 to 60 in 5 seconds. Yeah. And I have to know what did that really look like? Walk us through how that all happened, especially with no knowledge and no background and expertise. Yeah.
So the thing is, and I think that's the thing that saved me, and that's the reason why I didn't just I managed to even launch at all, was that I found an amazing pattern maker. She's like the best person I've met so far of my job journey. Like, she's absolutely amazing. It's the first person who I've met to do with the job. So I've got I'm learning how to sew now, but I don't even know how to sew. So that's like really, really no experience at all. And literally, it's just imagining the clothes. That's the only thing I can do. And I think I don't want to say I'm good at it because it's like whatever, but I don't think I'm terrible at it, which is good considering I've got a clothing brand. But yeah, I think it's like I'm good at thinking like, this would be even cooler if it had like this kind of back or an open back, or imagine this a bit longer and this like that, or whatever. But I can't actually make anything. Like the technical side of it, I'm really rubbish at. So I'm learning how to sew now, and I'm actually doing a lot better than I thought I would, so that's quite good. But when I first started, I was like, I have no idea how to work a pattern. I didn't even know. I mean, all I did was taking the clothes I had, turning them inside out, looking at how they were made, kind of thing, to have a vague idea. But I still when I got up, especially with it being all in English, when I got to my pattern makers for the first time, I didn't even know the difference between dart and seam because it was all like words I didn't know in English at all. So I was like, I had to learn everything.
Yeah.
But she's so patient. She's been so great. She's my work mom. She's like really old and like taught me everything, and she's really, really good. So that's absolutely great that I found her. That was the luckiest thing, and that's the only person that I found from the beginning that I'm still like working with now, because I think it's actually really shocking how unprofessional and how unreliable people are in this industry. I mean, I think it's in every industry, to be honest, but I've had some really bad experiences with manufacturers, seamstresses, and all that. But she's the pattern maker, has been like absolutely amazing from the beginning. So she's the first person I went to meet. I gave her my designs, and I was like, "This is what I want to do." And she was like, "Okay, like this skirt, for example, needs a slit somewhere because you literally wouldn't be able to walk in it." And I was like, "Oh yeah." Like I didn't think things through at all, which I obviously do now, which like I think I've learned a lot in like a short amount of time because I had to. But yeah, so she started making the patterns. I found a seamstress. The first seamstress I've met, I've actually only given her like accessories to make. So I wanted like neckerchiefs and scrunchies, things like that. She's made a few. And then she literally ghosted me. When people like just stop talking to you, but it's like usually like boys and girls on Tinder kind of thing. Like, he's completely stopped calling me back. Well, to me, that was like my seamstress, which is so depressing. But she is literally just like went MIA. And I know she's still around because I was like, maybe something happened to her. But I went to a place where I know she used to go all the time because her friend worked there, where they sell like fabrics and things. And they were like, "No, I've seen her yesterday." And I'm like, "Oh, okay." And I think I've tried to get in touch with her for a couple of months before I officially gave up. Wow. So she still has some of my fabrics as well, which is a bit annoying. So that was the first bad experience I had, really. That was like, okay, this isn't what you want really, for people to disappear on you when they've got your things. So that wasn't great. But then I went to a few factories. I really wanted very small factories, and obviously getting everything made in England, I don't think there's any massive factories. It's not like Bangladesh where you get like whole buildings kind of thing. Like it's always going to be quite small-ish. So I went to visit a small factory, and I think they knew that it was my first collection, and they definitely tried to take advantage of that. Like the sample, to make just one sample, they would have taken me £1,000, which is ridiculous.
And you were providing the pattern even.
I was providing the pattern and the fabric.
Oh, they were just cutting and sewing.
Like, and everything, yeah. So £1,000 is like they were clearly trying their luck.
Wait, before you go any further, I want to know, like, where did you find your pattern maker, who luckily wound up being amazing, and then where you find the seamstress, where you find the manufacturer, like, where are you finding all these people? So I found everyone online. Okay. No, actually, sorry, I found the pattern maker online. The way I found Googling? I went to look for sewing classes, and I thought someone who's giving sewing classes probably knows people who can sew professionally now and maybe make patterns. And I've asked her, and it turns out she was like, "Oh, I also do this freelance if you want." So that's how I found her. But
and that's also how I looked for the first seamstress. And the first seamstress I found in a fabric shop. I went to a fabric shop and I asked the people who work there, do you know any good seamstresses? Because obviously they see people who sew like all day, every day, so they're bound to know someone. So that was a bit unlucky because she ended up not being great. But I found some really good ones that way, so it's still like a really good way to find people.
Yeah.
And the factory I did find online. There's a website that's called Let's Make It Here. I think it's only, I'm not sure, but I feel like it's only for England. It might be.
Let's Make It Here?
Yeah.
Okay, I haven't heard that.
Yeah, it might just be for England, to be honest. But it's all about like things in the industry that are all made in England, basically. So I found the first factory there. And yeah, that's mainly, I think I just use the internet and obviously word of mouth. Is that how you call it? Sorry.
Yeah. No, you got it.
Yeah, like the more you meet people, the easier it is. But at first, obviously, I didn't know anyone, so I kind of had to refer to Google quite a lot.
Yeah. Okay, so you found this factory, and then they're like, "We want to charge you £1,000 for your sample," and you're like, "What?"
And also, I think it's just like when I got there, it was like they made me come at 5, which is obviously when all the workers were done. So I thought it was a bit weird. Like it's like I wanted to see the people who were working on their clothes. I wanted to see how they were working, and I asked if I could come early. They said no. So I thought there was something a bit dodgy anyway. So I kind of went thinking I'm not gonna go with it, but I still wanted to give it a try.
Sure.
And you know, when I got there was like plates with like chicken bones everywhere, which I think was from their lunch, and it just didn't feel like they tried. Because I told my dad before going, I was like, "Oh, I'm really stressed," and he was like, "You know, you don't have to be stressed because you're the one who wants to hire them, so they're the ones who are gonna have to be like trying to convince you to go for them, basically, because I'm the one who's paying them." And it definitely didn't feel like that. Like it felt like they were like totally not bothered because I was new, and I don't know, they were just probably thinking they've got more important clients that they can work with, kind of thing. So I just didn't like the way the guy was talking to me. He was extremely condescending. He kept on being like, "Yeah, you know, it's hard to start a line," and it's like, "Yeah, I know, thanks. Like, I'm not stupid. Like, I'm new, but I'm not dumb. Like, it's not like I don't think it's gonna go like, oh yeah, everything's just fine, like straight away. Like, it's because he was like, yeah. I was like, well, that's a bit more expensive than I thought. I was like, yeah, but you know, it's hard. It's like, yeah, I've talked to loads of factories, and even the most expensive one were not that expensive. So I just was like, that's weird. And I talked to my parent maker about it, and she was like, no, don't go for it. Like, it's definitely not supposed to be those prices. So then when I met with another factory, she came with me, which was amazing, because she could check whether she thought they were like going to be good quality. First of all, I could go in the afternoon, so I saw everyone working there. It was really small. It was like 4 people behind their sewing machines. It was not like, I don't know, it didn't feel dodgy. It felt like completely family-owned business kind of thing. And yeah, that was quite good. So they've made my first collection. I'm still working with them on a couple of trousers, but I'm not going to work with them on any more things because I think they're really good for very basic things, but they're not as used to making things that are maybe a little bit more, I'm going to say complicated, but it's not actually really complicated. It's just not like straightforward t-shirts and jeans kind of thing. Mm-hmm. So with the first collection, it was actually okay because I think that's a bit of a mistake that I've made, but the first collection that I drew was a lot better, in my opinion, than the one I ended up getting out. Because when I decided to actually go for it, I kind of got scared that if it wasn't simpler, people wouldn't buy it, which was really stupid of me. But, you know, I'm just like learning. Obviously, it was my first collection. It was bound to not be perfect. But I think, yeah, it's just I'd made everything slightly simpler. Apart from one suit that's a little bit more, like I've never seen a suit that looks exactly like that. And I think, well, that's the most popular piece, which proves that I was wrong to go like this because obviously the only thing that I left exactly as I originally designed it ended up being the one that sells the most and that people like the best. So I think I should have really carried on with my instinct. So from now on, I'm like going for something a bit more original and I've got a bit more of a unique feel because it's made in England, it's expensive. So if people are going to spend £100 on a pair of cord trousers that they can spend £30 on in H&M, why would they go to the new brand that they don't know? They don't care necessarily that it's made in England. So it has to have something more, I think, to offer.
In the design aesthetic.
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so were you just drawing all this stuff on paper by hand and they were just like rough sketches?
Yeah.
Like, did they look amazing?
No.
Okay. No, I have to call that out because I think that it's easy for us to have this conversation and people made a picture in their head. Oh, you're drawing these great sketches and then you're taking them to pattern maker and she's taking you really seriously. But it's like, these are just like napkin sketches.
No,
You don't have a
which is
fashion drawing background.
No, exactly. Which is exactly why I took the Central St. Martin's course, because I wanted them to teach me how to draw in a more technical way, so that I could go and be like a bit more confident when I would go to the pattern maker and be like, okay, this is how this is going to be made, and this is where you put the seam because of this, and they didn't teach me that at all, which was a bit disappointing. It was all about like how to create a mood board and things like that, which I already had my whole collection, so I didn't need that. So that was a bit
creativity side of it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Not the technical.
No. So my pattern maker is the one who's really taught me the more technical side of it. So my drawings are definitely better now than they were the first collection that I brought to her. It was like literally just like anyone drawing a t-shirt, basically.
Yeah. Okay. And so then, like what, you have these drawings and you get some samples made and like now you know that this suit that you left the unique details on is the bestseller. Like I wanted two things. One, what happened throughout the process that you started taking your original ideas that were, let's say, a little bit more unique and dumbing them down, like taking out some of the details, like just making them a little bit more mainstream? Like what really happened there? I'm curious.
So it's like, I think it's more, first of all, my whole first collection, which was really small because obviously it was the first one and I didn't have billions of pounds to put in it. So it was only like 7 or 8 garments, but they're all black, which, I mean, I love black, but it's not necessarily, I actually wear a lot of colors. And I think I was like, no, black is the classiest, black is the simplest, black is I think everything always looks better in black, but in real life, I actually have loads of non-black things. And I ended up making everything black because I felt like, no, that's the safest thing to do, which was one of the example of how I made everything a bit more maybe simple. Like the only thing that's got patterns is that suit, and it's like black with gold stripes, but are like going down. Like the stripes are not horizontal, they're like vertical.
Yeah.
So like on the jacket and the trousers, and the jacket it's not like a blazer or anything. It's like kind of a crop jacket, and you close it with 4 buttons kind of on the side, so like kind of like going over your boob, basically.
Okay.
And it's like I drew that without really thinking. One day I was watching TV and I was just drawing literally because I didn't even think of starting the brand back then. So that was just like me like entertaining myself, like relaxing or whatever. And I drew that and I thought, oh, this is actually quite nice, man. I wish I could wear this or whatever. So I was like, I definitely want to make this once I decided to start the brand. But I think it's got a bit more of an original cut than anything else that I've made. And everything else that I was drawing was a bit more like, I really love things that are very, like, I always say Gucci-esque because it's very Gucci-like now, but it's very like regal and loads of like over the top colors and patterns and frills and things like this. But I also like the sort of effortless, probably because I'm from Paris, not wanting to make it a cliche, but I guess people in Paris, like if you wear something a bit frilly, people literally look at you in the street. So you have to be a bit more blending in and a bit more classy in a almost sort of boyish, undone aesthetics. And I love the fact that, to me, the over-the-top side is very English and the effortless style is very like French. And I like the fact that I can get them to meet a little bit. And I think in the first collection, I kind of stayed in the simpler, more undone, kind of easiest aesthetics than the actual, there's that, but there's also this detail that makes it a bit more interesting kind of thing. So I just took everything and made it simpler, basically plainer, no interest, well, not interesting details, because I do love the collection. I do wear it like all the time and stuff, but I wish there was more things that were also a bit more unique. I think it's like a black jumpsuit that's got a nice cut, for example, and it's velvet. It's really nice and it's very comfortable, and I could wear it for like every single day. I feel like I'm in my pajamas, but it's not necessarily like a wow piece.
Yeah, but so you really scaled it back because you felt like that was the safer route to go. So you think maybe you just got a little bit too nervous with like taking any risks.
Pretty much, yeah.
Okay. And so then, like, how did you get to the point? Because again, I'm still like, wow, 6 months. Okay. How did you get to the point that you had your factory making stuff, you did your first line, and then you're like already selling stuff within, again, such a short time span. So, like, when did you start thinking about selling, and how did you go about that? Has it been all online? Are you doing pop-up shops? Like, what is this really looking like?
So it's all online, and it's only through the website. So I've made the website, which took me longer than I thought it would. I mean, I knew it would be difficult, but I didn't realize just quite how difficult. But to be fair, I've made it on Squarespace, which is like fairly easy. And it's very good because you've got like a full support thing. So as soon as you've got a question, you just have to Google like, how do I do this on Squarespace? And you've got the reply. So it's not actually that hard. It just takes a lot of time. Mm-hmm. So for 3 weeks straight, I was working from 8 a.m. till midnight every day, just doing the website. I had like the worst headaches. But by the end of it, yeah, it's just all on it. I do want to do more. Like, I really want to sell on other websites mainly, just like, there's a few really, really good ones I love. They always stock the best brands, and I'm thinking like it's like the dream to see my brand there. So like, I don't know if you know like Garmentry or Lisa Says Ga or things like that. They're just like, but I think they're all American as well. So I don't know why I keep on going overseas for everything. But they've got the same, because at first my plan was to sell everything on ASOS Marketplace, but I didn't realize how expensive everything was going to be to make. Yes. And once I realized how much I would have to sell the clothes for, I was like, ASOS Marketplace is so not my target clientele at all, because I would be way more expensive than everything else. So that I couldn't just get on it. And yeah, I think I need a bit more. Mainly it's because I did everything so fast. I started working in August on the winter collection, but I didn't actually receive it until the very morning I started selling it, which was a bit unplanned. But I had a few production issues, like nothing major, but the first time I received all of the clothes, none of the buttons were placed correctly. Oh. So that is the kind of thing that makes you feel completely suicidal, like a week from the day you want to launch. That's not good at all. So I was just looking at it being like, well, this is all wrong. Like it obviously wasn't much because it was just the buttons. Everything else was fine. So it's not a dramatic thing, but you still have to send everything back for them to change it and then send them back to you. So yeah, I received everything on the day where I said like, this is going live. So I was like, you need to send me everything back by that point, and they did, so that was fine. But it was a very stressful week. Yeah.
And so like, what was the launch like? Because I think it's not just as simple as like spending 3 weeks, 8 to midnight. It's still an insane amount of time and effort, but it's not like you just put up a website and turn it on and then people come and buy stuff. Like,
it's not, indeed.
Yeah, talk a little bit about that, will you? Because it's hard to sell, and it's hard to just put up a website and get people there. But you like hit go and you launched and you've gotten sales. Like, how does all this happen?
It is so hard to sell. Way harder than not harder than I thought it would be, but on some level it's been easier than planned. But it's harder at the same time. It's really weird. It didn't happen like I thought it would at all. So basically, my only medium of communication with anyone is Instagram. So that's the only thing I've got. That's the only thing I use, which is obviously not enough, which is why I want to be stocked in other places, because I need to like reach more people than just however many followers I've got. But that was the only thing I used really. So that like, I think the Instagram grew quite quickly, like only a couple of, like maybe 3 or 4 months, I got to 1,000 followers, which was more than I thought I would, like, yeah, in 2 or 3 months. So that was quite good. I was quite happy with it. I'm sure a lot of people who are like working for Instagram are listening to this being like, this is rubbish. But to me, that was really good. And that's just, yeah, I think that was the only thing that I did. So people would just come from Instagram, basically.
And so you just like, and how did you build your Instagram? You just started posting pictures, or like?
Yes, literally just started posting photos and hoped for the best. And I don't do that whole marketing thing. Well, I don't even know if I wouldn't call it marketing, but like where people go and like follow people and then unfollow them as soon as they follow them back. I think that's the worst thing ever.
I agree.
Like, I think, like people do this to me, to my personal Instagram, and I'm like, why would I? Like, I can see what you're doing. I'm not gonna follow you. Like, what are you doing? I think that's just completely ridiculous, and I don't think that would actually. I mean, I'm sure it works for some people, but it's not really how I want it to work. Like, I want people to follow me because they like the brand or the aesthetics or whatever. But I do like people's photos quite a lot because, well, first of all, it gets them to go see my profile, but also, like, I literally have to like draw, like design clothes all the time, and I need to stay inspired. And there's no better way for me to do it than to go check what people are like either wearing or even just like landscapes, gardens, whatever it is. Like, you find sort of inspiration anywhere, and I think Instagram is a great, exactly like Pinterest, it's just like great sources of inspiration for that. Like, so I love spending time on Instagram and just browsing through loads of people's profiles. But it at first I was like, oh my god, this is like the best thing ever, and then it's like, oh my god, this is the most tiring thing ever. I'm so sick of seeing like sunset photos. Like the first few I was like, oh my god, so nice, and now I'm like, why is everyone posting this? But you know, I probably do it too. It's just I don't expect that anyone's going to look at 20 profiles in a row like on the same day, and then you realize everyone's kind of into the same kind of things.
Okay, so you kind of slowly started building the Instagram, and that sounds like it came fairly organically, and then you just from there you just were able to direct people to the website through the link in your bio. And were you like telling them about everything that was going on and like, oh hey, we're launching, and like, go check it out, these pieces are now available? Okay.
Like, I post one photo of the brand a day, so it doesn't really give them much space to forget about it.
Okay, so good consistency.
Just make sure. And I can really see if I don't, like, I never don't anymore, but when I didn't, I would get like only, I don't know, between 5 and 15 people going to see the website, whereas if I do, it always goes up. So I think people literally, you need to be in their face, which is horrible on one hand, because it's like, I don't want to force people, but you know, I don't force them to go check the link in bio. It's just like, literally, they just have to be reminded of it, I guess.
Okay, and so that's your one channel. You're getting people from Instagram to the site, and you're getting some sales, and you're starting to see like what's working, what's not working, and starting to be able to plan and think better for how you can improve in the future.
Exactly, yeah.
Okay, so that was for the December launch.
Yes. So the other thing that is a mistake that I've made, which I think is like a mistake that a lot of people make, to be honest, when they start. Well, from what I've read and heard and people talk about a lot, but I fell into that trap completely. It was the margin. Like, I totally didn't check the right margin. So it's supposed to be like 2.5 or something, but I literally took 0.5, which was not at all. So I can't make a living out of it from that, because it's like, even if I sell the clothes, like, it's not actually getting me any money. And on top of that, which was more of an issue because I never really expected to make a living out of the first collection anyway, but what's really a problem is that I can't sell like wholesale to other websites or boutiques or whatever that would then sell me, because I can't give them a wholesale price, otherwise I would actually end up losing money. So that's something that I'm working on for the second collection, not to make that mistake again.
Okay, so can you, like, for people out there listening that don't quite understand margin or what that actually means, and the 2.5 markup versus the 0.5, can you give us, like, just using some round numbers, talk about what those numbers actually look like, and then how that does or doesn't work for you when it comes to trying to sell wholesale versus retail?
Yeah, of course. So basically, if I make like a dress that's costing me £50 for production, so it means that every single dress that I make of that model is costing me £50 just to have it made. Then I have to add up the price of the fabric. So I try, like in the first collection, I had to use quite a lot of polyester, like more than I wanted to, but I wanted loads of nice velvet kind of things and things like that. Like in the second collection, I'm trying, like I've only got 2 polyester things, I think. Like everything else is cotton or linen, and I definitely, my goal is to only use either organic fabrics or really good environmentally friendly quality fabrics. Like that's something that I'm really, really set on, but it's really hard when you don't have the budget for it. But the more it goes, the more, like I've got one organic cotton top in this one, which I'm really, really happy about. Like I really want to go that direction completely. So that the fabric, obviously is quite expensive, especially when you try to do things like that. Or if you've got like a nice thing but it needs to be lined, like when you like making everything in England, it's going to be expensive anyway, so I might as well go for quality products and make them even more expensive because it's not going to change much at that point. So you obviously want things that are going to be nice. The buttons that I use are all the same, and they've all got like a fleur de lis, which is like a lily thing, which is like the French symbol for royalty, which I absolutely love that symbol. So all of the buttons have that. I've got that on them, so they're obviously quite expensive because they're not just like simple buttons. You have everything else, like so much more than I thought. Like interfacing, I didn't even know what interfacing was when I first. It doesn't cost much, but when you have to put it in absolutely everything, you end up spending a lot on that.
Yeah.
Like labels, wash care labels. You obviously have the pattern, which is slightly different because you don't. Like if you make more of the clothes, you don't actually end up paying for the pattern again. So you do a bit of a different calculation on how to spread the price, but you do still need to basically pay for that.
Yeah.
And like so many other things, like the website, like things are a lot more in time. So you might divide them on like a 4-year span instead of just like however many dresses you make. But it's still something that you need to consider and think about when you're pricing them up, because it's still some money that you need. So you add all of that up together, gives you the price of how much you're actually paying per dress. You divide it by the number of dress you make, which in my case, I only make extremely small production lines because I don't want to waste. First of all, I'm only just starting. There's no point in me having like 3,000 of something when it's like I've got 1,000 something followers on Instagram. Like I'm not going to sell 3,000 dresses. And it's also, I don't want to do like that fast fashion, like let's get as many as possible and then we're just going to waste 1,500 and it doesn't matter that it's just completely destroying the planet. Like I don't want to do that. So which is why I've said like my first collection, I don't know how long it'll take for me to sell absolutely everything. Like things that I've sold really well, I've made a few more of because it was like working well. But even if it takes me 10 years to like get rid of my jumpsuit, it'll be on the website for 10 years. Like I don't care. Like it's not, my point is not to make clothes that are only good this year anyway. Like I want to make things that you can also look great in 5 years or 10 years or 15 years. Like they're supposed to last. They're not supposed to be pieces that are only good for like 3 occasions. So I don't care how long it takes for me to sell them. Like they'll always be on sale as long as I've got them, because there's no way I'm getting rid of them and polluting when it's like someone might actually like them in 5 years and think this is great. I'm so glad I found that.
Yeah. So you're making these timeless pieces that are just, they're just going to keep working.
Yes.
Yeah.
And also everything, because obviously when you're making clothes, you've always got fabrics left that it's not enough to make another piece of, but you've still got too much to just throw away. So I'm making bags out of them, which, you know, some of them look really good. Some of them maybe wouldn't be the kind of fabric that you would think of for a bag initially. But it's like, you know what, it doesn't matter. Like I don't want to waste it, and someone might love it because of how original it looks. So I'm just going to go with it because I don't want to waste anything, basically.
Yeah. Okay, so a little bit on the margin stuff. So just to clarify, so you like add up all these costs and you divide it amongst your inventory. And so you threw out some numbers, 2.5 and 0.5. So like for people out there who don't quite understand how that all works, let's say you figure out and for even numbers, we'll just use 100. So if your hard costs come out to $100 for this dress, your standard markup is going to be 2.5, meaning you multiply that times 2.5. So your standard retail price for that's going to be $250. And there's different formulas to calculate the wholesale price backwards off of that. But it has to be inflated so much because if you were to take that wholesale price, your base price, your cost, and sell it to a shop, or, you know, someone else has to take a cut if you're selling it off of someone else's website, and then that has to get marked up again so that everybody in the line gets some profit off of that. And then it sounds like what you did was you said, okay, I'm going to take this dress that cost me $100 and I'm going to mark it up 0.5. Well, I would say it would be like a 1.5. Would you do it to like 150, which doesn't allow room for markup or to have someone else in the line? But then it's such a challenging spot because I've actually had a lot of people email me this. And so I'm curious to know what your thoughts are, what you're thinking of like for the next collection or the future, or what conversations you've maybe had with your audience. But this whole concept of like people want great fashion and they want quality stuff, but the price tag that comes with it sometimes is really hard to swallow. And so it's like, do you think that you have a market and a customer and audience that really could absorb that $250 price point or pound or whatever, like that higher price point, using that just as a round number off of $100 cost?
Yeah.
Versus, are you thinking, you know what, gosh, I really can't get people to justify this. I only marked it up to 150 because that's what I thought I could get. So now I have to figure out a way to decrease my cost, but then that's hard because now you're like, okay, well, maybe I have to find cheaper sewers. I have to work with cheaper fabric, which maybe starts to defeat the whole purpose of all the stuff you're trying to do. Like, where are you with all that?
Well, to be honest, I think there's a point where if you're going to be a bit expensive, and I mean, it's still not like £4,000 for like a dress or anything, but if you're going to be a bit expensive, I think people who have the kind of money to put like £150 in a dress probably have the money to put 250, a little bit. Maybe not everyone, but I think most people, when it's like, I mean, I wouldn't have been able to put £150 in a dress. I wouldn't have been able to put £100 in a dress when I was working, like, because I was working like on a minimum wage salary and I've got like life and rent and everything, and that just wouldn't have allowed me to spend that much. Like £50-60 would have been the absolute maximum that I would have spent on a dress. I can see people who buy stuff from me, they're buying usually more than one thing, which proves that they do have the means to spend that kind of money. I don't think they wouldn't buy it if it was £100 more expensive. I don't think that I think it's at a level where it doesn't actually make that much difference, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, no, I understand.
And I've talked to a lot, because obviously that was my first collection, so my thought process was literally just like, I cannot sell this for that much.
Yeah.
Like, I felt almost embarrassed to, because I was like, and that's what I was saying earlier, I think if my designs had been a bit more, I mean, I don't want to, like, it sounds like I'm absolutely hating the first collection. I don't, I love it. And I do think that the designs are good, but I think they're like classics good, which means they're kind of work for most people, I'd say, and for any kind of situation, which is great. And they're kind of like staples, which is fine. Like, I think a high-waisted court trousers is a great thing to have in your wardrobe, but they're not like the wow, can't believe this girl is wearing this amazing thing kind of thing. They're easier. And I think I couldn't justify in my head spending, like, making people spend that much money on something that wasn't like that wow thing. So I think that's why I literally was just like, no, not putting this, like, not putting the court trousers for more than £98 because I can't get over £100 for them. Like, to me, that seems ridiculous. So that's why I left it on those prices. But that's also why for my designs now, I want to make it worth the money. So my thought is definitely not to go for an alternative that's cheaper, because that would mean that I can't work with people in England anymore, or I have to like go with really crap fabrics, or like, I want the quality to be really good. I want people to be able to keep the pieces forever. I want to feel good about the brand and think like people are being paid correctly to make them, and I'm not using terrible fabrics, and it's all like, it's something that I can be completely proud of, and not something that I'm thinking like, well, yeah, it's great, but I don't really want to think too much about when it was made or things like that. Like, that would depress me so much. I'd rather not have a brand, I think. So if I want to carry on with that sort of those ethics that I have, I think it needs to just be with the design, going back to what I originally was planning on doing, which is, okay, you spend a bit of money on it, but not a lot of people will have it. So, it's worth it. It's something that's a bit more original. You don't find it everywhere. And also, there's not that many of them that I'm producing, and even less now because I'm actually only working with dressmakers now. So they're more expensive than factories. So it's going to be more expensive anyway. But it's going to be really good quality, and it's all handmade, and it's all like, there's a story behind it as well. I really want to make a video once I've got all of the dressmakers that I want. I really want to make a video of each of them working on it, and I want it to be like, this is this person in Leicester working on this dress. This suit was made near London by Pete, who's 96. Maybe not 96, but you know what I mean.
I was like, wait, do you really have like a 96-year-old seamstress? That would be amazing.
No, but I do have one that's probably, I'm gonna say 70, and she's amazing. And she's working, like, she's retired and she's done it her entire life, but she wants to carry on doing it, like, because she loves it, and she's absolutely great. And I think that's like, I want people to feel more involved in the clothes. I don't want it to be just like, oh yeah, whatever, that suit. Like for the price that it costs, I want it to be like, oh, this suit was made in Brighton. Like, interesting.
Yeah.
Don't know if it interests anyone, but it would interest me. I would feel like I wanted people to be able to see it being made and to be like, this is so cool.
So, like, how you said you want to make a video, which I think is really cool, and like giving people behind the scenes glimpse and stuff.
Yeah.
But up until now, like, how have you been communicating to people since it's just online and they're finding you on Instagram and going to your site? Like, how do you really communicate to them? You know, this is a 98-pound trouser. This is the quality. You know, like what kind of story are you telling them already, and how are you conveying to them? You know, because they don't. You know, you're this new brand. It's not like they know the name. They understand
exactly.
you know, if you go to H&M, you know what you're going to get. If you go to Gucci, you know what you're going to get. But like, how are you doing this already?
It's really hard. Like it's very true. Like it's really hard to get people to know who you are and what you stand for, kind of thing. So mainly because there's like, I've obviously wrote about it in the about section on the website, but it's like, do people go see the about section? Like you have to be quite interested to go see the about section.
Yeah.
But I've mainly used Instagram stories to say stuff like that because I feel like that's the most efficient way.
Yeah.
Like I feel like when I made a story, because I had quite a few people sending me messages on Instagram being like, so who are you? Like, being like, what's this all about? Because I did say briefly on Instagram, like, okay, so like I want this to be like as ethical as possible, or this is all made in like cotton, this is 100% organic cotton, whatever. But I don't want my Instagram to look like an ad. So I like it when it's like nice photos of lifestyle situation where you see the models and you're like, oh my God, this could be me. Like, this is me with my friends. I don't want it to look like, just look at the dress.
Yeah.
Like, I don't like that. So I didn't really want to communicate it too much underneath the photos in the captions because I think that would, I don't know, it just creates something which probably would be good and would work on some level to get people more aware of where it is, but I don't really want it to sort of pollute the Instagram vibe that I'm going for, which is more like, this is just people looking at the photos and I just want them to think this looks so nice because they can see themselves wearing the clothes in this situation more than anything else. But with these stories, I think you can just really go more behind the scenes. It's not as curated as what you actually post on your grid, which has to be quite nice and whatever. Like in the stories, I can just be like, oh, this is me like sewing this thing, this button up, and this is whatever. And so when people started asking me questions to know more about the brand, I just did a story that I've put on the highlight so people can still see it now. Like it didn't disappear. And it's just saying a little bit like, oh, this is me, Anouchka, like I'm from Paris, and I basically started this brand because I wanted to do this, and I only like, I hope that eventually I'll only use like really, really good fabrics that are all organic and made of natural fibers and don't pollute too much, which natural fibers actually pollute quite a lot when you turn them into fabrics, which is like quite like whatever you do, it's like you're kind of trapped. So, you know, try and find new solutions to make it work better. But just that was mainly my only communication channel.
Okay.
Yeah. And that when I did that actually, like a lot of people wrote back to me being like, that was so cool knowing more. So I definitely want to do more of that, but I'm waiting for, at the moment I've got 3 dressmakers who are working on this collection and the next one. And I'd like to have like maybe between 5 and 7 kind of scattered around England before I can make the video.
Okay. And can I ask, and you don't have to share any specific numbers if you're not comfortable, but like, how did you fund all of this initially? Because like you said, things add up, it gets really expensive, and then your margins start to get low because you don't want to charge so much. So like, is this self-funded with savings, or what did you look at for that?
No, I'm extremely lucky, and my dad has helped me start the company. So it's not, I mean, we started really small. Like, I don't think it definitely wasn't like £100,000, like very far from it. So I think we probably started almost a bit smaller than we probably should have, or at least than other brands start. So that's why also the production is so small. But I like it because that goes with my values anyway. So I don't mind the production line being really small. But yeah, I'm really lucky because my dad had like some money on the side. They was like, you're my daughter, and I think this is a great project, so I want to help you. So I didn't have to go to the bank, which was really amazing. And that's definitely something, if anyone wants to start a business, can avoid going to the bank. That's obviously like a massive weight off your shoulders, because it's not, even if you pay the person back, it's just not the same sort of stress, I think.
Yeah.
So when you're starting, you don't know what it's going to be like, so you don't know if it's going to take 25 years to pay them back.
Okay, so that really looked out for you. And so where are you at now? You said you're working on your next collection, and when is that going to launch?
So right now, this is a very good other story. When I decided to stop working, for the most part, with the first manufacturers who did my winter collection, so that was because I thought, okay, they're good for very simple things, but not for what I'm going for now. And I had found another seamstress who was going to make like bags and scrunchies and stuff like that for me, who hopefully wasn't going to ghost me like the other one. And when I started talking to her about my manufacturers and the fact that they sent me stuff with like the buttons being misplaced and everything, she was like completely shocked. She was like, this is outrageous. Like, this is not okay. This is so unprofessional. What is wrong with people? Blah, blah, blah. So we were talking about this, and she was saying that she wants, because she's in my city, so that was quite practical. She was saying that she was going to start, like, move studios. She was moving to another studio. She was going to have employees, and she wanted to focus on dressmaking a lot more than just, because so far she was just doing like alterations. And she wanted to focus on more dressmaking, like working with brands like myself. And I was like, all right, well, I'm looking for someone new to make my first collection. So that was like a year ago. And maybe 8 months ago. And I was looking for someone to do my summer collection for this summer. So I was like, yeah, I'm looking for someone, blah, blah. And she was like, oh, I can totally do that for you. And I was like, are you sure? Because it'd be quite a lot. I mean, even if I make really small productions, it's obviously like a whole collection. That's quite a lot of pieces still for one person. She was like, no, it's fine. I've got 2 employees, so I think we can really definitely do that. Like, bring me your designs, bring me the patterns. And I brought her everything a few months ago for her to start working on. And when I brought everything to her, she was moving studios. So it took like a couple of months before she was actually completely settled. So I was like, okay, we're wasting a bit of time, but I was like, we still have time. Like, it's fine. It was only like December or whatever. And then she just basically started never doing anything, but always having excuses for it. And that's, again, a really good mistake to make, because then you learn from it. But as soon as someone doesn't deliver when it's like for your job, run away, because that's not worth the hassle. So I just stayed thinking, oh no, she wasn't able to do it for next week, like she said, but that's only because she had this to do, but she's definitely doing it for next week, like the one after. And then she wouldn't, and she wouldn't, and she wouldn't. And the more, I think I was just having an approach of like, it's fine, we still have a lot of time before I need the collection to be out, because I wanted it to be out by like April or May, and they were still quite far away. But now it is May, and she hasn't delivered anything to me. So she's not working for me anymore, obviously. But I had to literally find other seamstresses in a rush, because she completely basically just took all of my patterns and only made 2 things out of the, I don't know, like 13 I asked her to make, like samples, and she only made 2 of them in like 6 months. Which,
oh my gosh.
Yeah.
So lesson learned, like, run away at the first red flag.
Definitely. Like, do not think, I mean, I'm sure people around are not as stupid as I am, and they probably would. I'm just like still new at it, and I think I've got like, I'm just like well, why would anyone say that they can do something if they can't?
Yeah.
Like, it doesn't make any sense to me. So I was just thinking, no, she definitely can do it. She's just been a bit like stuck at work kind of thing. She's had like, and she would do one thing in a while, so that would make me think like, oh, see, she's still getting on it. But no, like, someone who's not committed is not worth your time, and definitely not your money.
Is she running this like full time as a business, or is she doing that on the side? Okay, like,
no,
I'm wondering what do you think? Because gosh, it's really unfortunate. And I've heard, like, you're not the first person I've heard tell stories like this. And it's so bizarre to me, too, because I'm like, if you're in business and you say you're going to do something, like, you do something because you get paid and you provide the service to your customer.
I've
like, that's
asked
basic.
her several times, like, are you sure you can take on that much work? And she was like, yeah, definitely. And she still was saying she could do it, even when she was, even on the first signs of me being like, no, I don't think she can do it.
Yeah.
So thank God I actually, like, I've got a really good husband who's very patient and is the best at giving me advice. Like without him, I would totally be lost. And he doesn't know anything about it. He doesn't know anything about business or fashion, but he's just, I guess, just more clever than I am. And he was like, find another seamstress now. He was like, even if you don't fire her, find a plan B. Like, you don't want to be stuck with her. So I listened to him, and I did find other people before she stopped working for me. So that was really, really fortunate, because at least I'm not, I mean, it's still like a total panic like situation that you don't want to find yourself in. But it forced me to go with the idea of having more than one seamstress, like more than one dressmaker, and having that kind of, oh, maybe each thing can be made at different places, and that can be quite a nice thing about them. So that's probably, you know, you need to find something positive out of every situation.
So, like, even though it's a little bit more to manage, do you feel a little bit more comfortable because you're diversified and you're not relying on one person for everything?
Exactly. Like, okay. I'm never relying on one person anymore. Like, I'm never, ever sending all of my labels and all of my buttons to just one person, because then you have to get them back from them, which that's, like, I still have parents that I still haven't had back from that person that I keep on asking for, and that she's just not giving me back. So that's, like, definitely keep things. Always make copies of everything. Like, that's fine because I had copies, but still, like, you just want them back. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's just out of principle. Why would people be like this?
Yeah,
so,
but they are. It happens.
Yeah. But yeah, so I'm not... I've got 3 dressmakers working on the, well, still to be summer collection now, which is obviously not ideal, but I don't think it's because, you know, I'm so small in terms of collections, and obviously the brand is still like only just new, so it's not like everyone is waiting for it and people are like losing it, being like, when is the gold collection coming out? People are fine with waiting, but even the ones, because I get like messages, so I've got a few samples now that I've been shooting for like a month or so that I keep on saying like it's coming soon. I've had a few messages of people asking when it's coming, but I think apart from 2 things that are really extremely summery, and they are genuinely coming in the next couple, well, obviously by the time this is live, like it would have been out already, but as of now it's coming in the next couple of weeks. But everything else, I've got quite a lot of suits and things like this, which are quite summery, but obviously still work in the autumn. So I think that I'm actually quite saved thanks to that.
Yeah.
Like it's not the biggest drama ever if it doesn't come out before June. So that's quite lucky. I don't have any swimsuits or anything like this that are like summery to the maximum kind of thing.
Yeah.
So that's, and I'd rather just waste time and find the right people to work with. And now it's like, I am not, like, I've got a seamstress that's not in my city, so I couldn't meet her. I found her online, and she seems really nice and she seems great. But I was like, I'm not going to send her my whole roll of fabric, because if she's not good, then she's got everything of me. So even though that makes me waste time, I've just sent her like enough to make just one sample, and then she's going to back the sample, and I'm going to check it, and then I'll send her the thing. And I think before I probably would have been like, oh my god, no, I'm running out of time, I'm just going to send her everything now because we need to get on it. But now it's like, no, you know what, I'd rather it coming out 2 weeks later but having something good than not coming out at all because someone is holding everything hostage and or doing a crappy job. Like, there's no point.
Yeah, well, I mean, I know you've like listened to every episode of the show, which is amazing. But like, this is something we've talked about before, is like, it's so exciting to get to the finish line and to launch, but there's something really valuable and priceless in having the self-discipline to go slow and be cautious. And like you said, instead of, oh my gosh, we have to get it, I have to send her everything, she's amazing, and then it's going to delay things longer.
It's so funny you mentioned this, because I've literally listened to the one particular episode where you mentioned this on the day that other seamstress stopped working for me. And I was like, definitely I've been doing this. It's exactly that. You just get so excited, and you're like, you find someone who's telling you that they can do it, so you're like, okay, like, I'll give you everything, like, when can you do it for? And they're like, oh, next week. And you're like, oh my god, amazing. And it's like, no, like, that's not gonna happen. So yeah, I definitely would rather take my time now. But I think it's like, again, because I'm like more into the slow fashion or whatever it's called, like, thing, it doesn't really matter too much. Like, it's not, again, I'm not Topshop who has to get things out like every week. Like, it's fine.
Yeah.
Like, I'd rather go for quality pieces. Like, I don't know if you know, there's like I can't actually remember the name now, but there's a brand from France who's literally, it's just a mother and her daughter, and the mother is just sewing everything herself, and they're literally like, we'll just get something out like when we have it. So as soon as we've got an idea for something and my mom makes it, we'll get it out. And it's like, that's it. They don't follow any kind of calendar. That's definitely more the kind of thing I'm going for than like, okay, it's summer now, I need to get the summer collection out, even though I do it on the grand scheme of things. But I'm not even going to get the whole collection out in one go, because obviously seamstress is working on their own. They can't do like that kind of production. So I'm more going to be like, okay, this is maybe the first 2 pieces that are from the summer collection, and then 2 weeks later again a dress, and 2 weeks later again a suit. And because also when you don't have that many things on your website, if you get everything out at once, then people don't have any reason to go back for 6 months, because they see everything. So it's like, why would they go back? There's nothing new. So if you get one thing out at a time, at least they're waiting for something and they've got a reason to go back to it.
Yeah, no, I actually was going to bring that up because it's a strategy that I think we're slowly seeing brands, especially more of the up and coming brands, who are able to sort of start from zero and define what they want to do right now, instead of being stuck in this old model of, we have this collection, it launches these collections, they launch 2 or 4 times a year, and boom, we let everything out at once, and then 3 weeks later it's already stale and it's on clearance. And so I think we're slowly starting to see, because you're not the first brand I've heard talk about this concept of like, slowly you trickle out piece by piece by piece. They're a little bit more timeless. Like, yeah, there's some seasonality to them maybe, but then you're right, it gives people more reason to watch and come back and see what's out in 2 weeks or 3 or 5 weeks from now.
And it's like, why? I mean, I know this is just the society we live in or whatever, but why does everyone want everything now? It's like, it's nice to have like, oh, now it's like turn for this thing. It keeps the excitement going.
And we can't always buy everything right now either. I mean,
no, exactly. And like, I've talked to quite a few friends of mine when I was doing the prices actually for the second collection, because I kind of freaked out when I was like, oh my god, this is going to be even more expensive than the first one, which I already thought was expensive. So I talked to my friends and they were like, people can save for the clothes they want as well. Like, you don't have to have it straight away. They can put some money aside for 1 or 2 months and then they'll be able to afford it. And they were like, people like who really want something will do that. And I was like, actually, that's true. Like, it doesn't have to be, I know there's some people where if they can't buy it straight away, they just will never get back to it. But I've seen some people going, because obviously you can track like who's going to look at your website. I've seen loads of people putting stuff in their basket and only buying it a few months later. Or I see the same person going on the website like sometimes every day, and they only buy something like at the end of a very long span of time, where I'm like, why is this person coming to see me every day and not buying anything? But it's actually, it makes sense. Like, I've definitely done that before, like without realizing it. But you just like that they probably have someone who goes and be like, why is this girl like looking at our things every day? And it's exactly the same thing. It's just like, sometimes you really like something, but you can't afford it, or you're thinking, do I really need it? Or you're thinking, what would I style it with? It doesn't have to be like an instant, oh yeah, I'll get it. Like, it's fine if it takes a bit longer than that. So I think that's definitely something that people on my website are doing anyway.
Yeah, that's such a great insight. So I am so impressed with all the lessons you've learned and everything you've gotten accomplished in less than a year, because we're talking right now, it's May 2018, and you literally started at one class at Central St. Martin's in June of 2017, and you've already learned so many valuable lessons and made some great progress, and really starting from zero. It's pretty phenomenal. To hear what your journey's been so far, and I can't wait to see what the next 3, 6, 12 months brings for you, Anouchka.
Yes, me too. Thank you.
Yeah.
Well, obviously there was a lot of things to learn, as you can tell. But I mean, it's obviously normal when you're just starting out and you literally have not got a clue, which was just winging it, I guess.
Yeah. So, where can everybody find you and what you're doing online? And probably Instagram would be great as well.
Yeah, of course. So the website is weargold.net. So that's weargold.net. And the Instagram is Girls Wear Gold.
I love that. Wear gold. Girls wear gold. I love it. Thank you so much for chatting with me. I would love to end.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'd love to end with the question I ask everybody at the end of the interview, which you very well know what's coming. What is one thing that people never ask you about working in the fashion industry that you wish they would?
Well, see, I had thought of this question before, because obviously I hear you asking it to everyone. So I knew it would come, but I actually kind of mentioned it already before, so I feel like I'm just going to repeat myself now.
That's okay.
But the thing I was going to go for is definitely about the price of what it actually costs you to make the clothes. I feel like no one ever talks about that because it's kind of like not a lot of people are willing to talk about how much they actually spend on them.
Yeah.
And I guess it's because most people take a really big margin on it, so they don't want to say how much it actually costs them. But it really surprised me how expensive it is to get the clothes made. Again, it's all made in England in small production, so it's obviously more expensive. If I was getting like 3,000 of something made in China, it wouldn't be the same at all. But it was way more expensive, like, than I thought it would ever be. Like, it's even like the simplest top can be like at least £30 just for production, without counting like pattern making. Pattern making is so hard to do. It's so expensive because it takes so long for the person to do it, and it's very complicated. So I completely understand why it costs that much to have someone making the patterns, but it is really expensive. Like, you pay by the hour, and that's, well, I don't know if that's the same in America, but in here that's how it is anyway. And it does add up really quickly to like 8, 9, 10 hours on something, and you're like, maybe we can make it sleeveless, because it's just freaking out a bit, and it's definitely way more expensive than I thought it would be. So that's, like, again, as I've said, like, I thought I would be able to get on ASOS Marketplace. I thought my prices would be just a little bit above Topshop prices, to be honest.
Wow.
I was like, well, yeah, my trousers would be like £60, and I think my tops would be like 25, 35
Retail.
And it's not at all. Yeah.
Yeah.
I thought that's what I could sell them for. Like, I had absolutely no clue. But as soon as I started, obviously there's like the crazy people who were like, yeah, £1,000 per sample, but that was crazy.
Yeah.
But it is literally like £45 for £55 for like a suit, just for it to be sewn together.
Yeah.
Like, without the fabric, without the patterns, without all of that. And it's like, wow, that I'm definitely not going to make too many of these, because I can't. Like, and that's something that I don't think anyone had prepared me for, because I think people don't talk about it
what
a
it
lot.
actually costs.
But
Yeah.
also maybe because not a lot of people make their things in England. I don't know. Well, like in those kind of countries, and obviously a lot of the bigger brands go to countries that are a lot less expensive.
Yeah.
But I feel like if anyone asks, like, so how much does it cost you to actually make it, people are getting really shy about it, and I think that's something that should be talked a lot more about.
Yeah. Well, it's like the Everlane, what did they call it? They kind of started the trend of like some of this full transparency of like what it actually goes into the garment, how much it actually costs, you know, the material costs, the labor costs, all that stuff. And I think there is value in that. And I think the customer and the industry is slowly starting to change with with brands starting to do this and realizing that the customer actually really likes to see that transparency, and they're okay knowing.
Because also, the customer does want to know, like, am I paying for something that's fair enough? Or is it, like, I know brands, because I have a friend who used to be a PR for, like, some brands that are, like, quite high market in France.
Yeah.
They would take, like, the most ridiculous margin. It would cost them nothing to make the clothes, and they would sell them for €500. And it's like, people deserve to know where their money goes, and I think people would like to know where their money goes. And I think it's also the same thing with Fashion Revolution and the whole Who Made My Clothes movement. And that's, well, that would go, like, that's, I love that, because that's also one of the reasons I want to make that video, where you can see people making the clothes, and you can know that, no, it's not some kid in Bangladesh that might have a building collapsing on him any moment now. Like, it's not, I think it's like, you just have to be a bit, well, obviously people do whatever they want, but I want to be a bit more conscious about what I wear. And I think there's definitely a kind of a trend almost for that. And I hope it's like not just a trend. I hope it's something that people actually integrate a lot more. But I think it's the case. I think more and more people care about, well, I think what happened 5 years ago in Bangladesh when that building like collapsed definitely was a bit of a wake-up call for a lot of people. Obviously, probably not the majority of people, but probably enough people that those kind of things matter to them, and that kind of transparency actually does make a difference, and they might go for you more than another brand because of it.
Yeah, and I think like the industry's worked in certain ways for so long that like this shift isn't going to happen overnight. But even if we look at where we came from, and it's so unfortunate that Rana Plaza collapse is what it took for all of us to kind of wake up. But it's one of those things that it's like, you know, look at where we've come from then to now. I think a lot of consumers are slowly getting more educated. Brands like yours are getting out there and they're speaking up and they're giving transparency, and it's changing. I really feel like it is. I mean, a lot of people I have on the show, we talk about this, and I think it's changing, and it's going to be slow and it's going to take time, but we are seeing a shift, which is really, really positive.
You know, when I remember the episode where you interviewed that woman, I think she was called Colleen from Untucked Workwear.
Colleen Monroe from Untucked Workwear. Yeah.
And she was talking about like how her dream, or like more goal, was to have like a factory where she could like make her own fabrics or like mix fabrics. I thought that was so great. That's exactly what my lifelong goal is. I think it probably would take me like 70 years to get there, but I'd love, like, that's the absolute dream, to have like my own factory where I've got my own workers and I can know that everyone's like having a good work life, and having like your own fabrics, like making your own fabrics using natural dyes. Like, that is the absolute dream. And I think that's like, well, obviously you need a lot of money to do this, so I'm very far from it, but that's definitely something I keep in mind if everything goes according to plan.
Yeah, well, you have to dream big.
Yes, exactly.
So, I love it. This has been so much fun. Thank you so much for chatting with me. It's really great to hear your story and everything you've worked through, and the mistakes and the lessons and the successes. And I really appreciate you sharing all the advice with everybody out there listening.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you so much for listening to this episode of the Successful Fashion Designer Podcast. I really appreciate each and every one of you out there. As always, the best way you can help grow the show and to get more listeners here, which just brings more value to everybody out there in the fashion industry who's trying to make it. I would be so grateful if you could share the show with someone you know in the industry. Again, that can be a friend, a coworker, someone who you know wants to break into fashion and has no idea where to start. There is a wealth of knowledge in all of these interviews. I know that because you guys tell me day in and day out how much you gain from all these amazing guests who share their stories and their advice and their tips. And go ahead and do someone else a favor out there that you know would gain some value, and share this episode or one of the other episodes with them. I know they'll appreciate it, and I definitely appreciate it as well. As always, if you'd like to learn more about any of the resources mentioned in this episode, visit the show notes at sfdnetwork.com/64. Thanks so much, and I'll talk to you in the next episode of the Successful Fashion Designer Podcast.